Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar. We've got a great presentation lined up for you today, but before we get started, there are just a few general admin points to cover. First and foremost, please use the online question tool to post any questions that you have and we will share them with our speakers. Second, if you experience any technical difficulties today, please let us know using that same questions tool and a member of our admin team will be on hand to support you. And finally, just to note, this session is being recorded and we'll share a copy of that recording with you via email in the coming days. So, without further ado, I'd like to hand over to our speakers to get us started.
Thank you, Lucy. Perfect. I hope you can hear me. Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning if you're in the US. My name is Lavinia Meliti. I'm the head of business and legal affairs at IPwe. I live in Miami, Florida, but today coming to you from Rome, Italy. I appreciate the opportunity to speak at this webinar and thank you all for joining. So I will talk about traditional patent pools in general and turn into the most important point, which is the reward of innovation for tech implementers. And so I will explain how we as in IPwe modernize the patent space and change the concept of the traditional patent pools. I will address the problems and the inefficiencies of the traditional patent pools, as well as the patent marketplace, and then turn into IPwe's solutions to that. So the bottom line is that the IPwe smart pools promote cumulative innovation, encourage technological adoption by reducing all the costs that are related to the patent licensing. So we have transaction costs and negotiation costs, and improving access to patented knowledge. Now I'll leave it to you, Jonas, for a quick introduction about yourself and IPwe.
Thank you very much, Lavinia. My name is Jonas Block. I'm a former attorney at law based in Düsseldorf, Germany. I have been focusing on patent assertion and cross-border litigation, especially regarding European cases, but also with transnational implications in the past. I have written my PhD thesis in automated patent licensing around standard essential patents, so I'm very familiar with the pooling background. And I'm currently tasked with the AI development at IPwe. And I'm also responsible for the infrastructural design of our NFTs. I'll get into more details regarding the NFTs and regarding our AI in the technical part of this presentation. And I'm very happy to be here today and to present together with my colleague Lavinia. A short introduction about IPwe. We are around since 2018, but we are looking at a long track record of technology history. Our CEO, Eric Spangenberg, has acquired a startup out of the University of Minnesota in 2011, which is the origins of our artificial intelligence engine. We have added a blockchain dimension to it in 2017, and we are leveraging the power of those two technologies to identify, research, and evaluate and transact in the patent space in general, and to just add value and bring more stakeholders in the IP system to the table. Unfortunately, a lot of IP never transact during its lifespan, and we have, it's our mission, it's our declared mission to create the patent asset class and to break free this sleeping potential, so to say, and to empower the IP world from going beyond the mere defensive patenting or generally holding IP assets for defensive tasks to actually go into the licensing realms and to break free innovation. And our smart pooling program is one of these vehicles that we're using for it, and we're going to present more details about it today. Just a couple of items. IP as a business asset is something that, from the point of view of the financial world, is rarely recognized and as an intangible, rarely exploited. So it just is just a number on the balance sheet, and there's not much more done around it. Our declared mission is to change that, and with our NFT-driven approach, leveraging blockchain technology massively, and with the smart pools, they are like the embracing circle around all of our technology, and with which we are going to deploy our technology on the market. And I think so much about us. Let's get into the weeds.
Okay, ready. We can jump right in. Okay. So we're happy to answer to any of your questions. So you can write the questions in the chat box, and you can direct them either to Jonas or myself. So at the end, we'll address the questions. So the very first thing that I want to talk about is what patent pools are and why they were created in the first place. What's their goal, and if they were able to achieve this goal. So much of the world's wealth is tied up in patents, and prolific institutions and corporate organizations frequently maintain a portfolio of tens to thousands of active patents. The patent's value is extracted through licensing, and the process of combining and efficiently extracting the value of these patents through licensing is often expensive and inefficient, and I will explain shortly why. The true potential and the value of many patents can only be extracted when you combine it with other complementary patents. So what has happened in the past is that companies have identified owners of complementary patents and either licensed to them or entered into cross-licensing arrangements. Now, what's the problem for the patent holders? The patent holders are largely on their own, and it doesn't matter how many patents they have. They could have a few or 1,000 patents. Generally speaking, they do not have efficient tools to manage their patent portfolio. Very few companies have the means and the expertise to do so. So patent pools, which they're 200 years old, they have helped change how these companies approach patent licensing and monetization. So the idea behind patent pools is to give access to a more efficient licensing. And they consist of agreements among several firms, among several companies, to license as a bundle their respective patents to third parties. And the third parties are the so-called licensees. Now, like the traditional patent pools, our smart pools consist of two key groups. So on one side, we have the founding members, which are the patent contributors, who agree to bundle their patent rights without losing patent ownership. And then members on the other side, which again are the licensees, who take a license to the patents that are contributed to the pool at an agreed upon price. Now, what's the central idea behind patent pooling? Again, to provide an efficient route towards licensing for tech implementers, but at the same time, to reward the innovation of patent holders. Now, the question becomes, can, for the traditional patent pools, actually reward innovation and encourage tech adoptions? The short answer to this is no, unfortunately. So the traditional patent pools are based on patent assertion and litigation. So they have high fees and they have a narrow focus. So they are, in other words, inefficient and limited in their ability to significantly expand the licensing opportunities available to the patent holders. Now, I guess all of us know that litigation leads to incredible inefficiencies across time. The most inefficient method of price discovery is litigation, whereas a better discovery mechanism would be to share additional information. Now, the natural instinct for the people managing their IP assets is to keep it confidential. But as a result of all the technological changes that we see today, that's no longer the way. We need to have open source. We need to share information. That's what's becoming much more common. This should be the proper way of doing business, and smart pools, IPwe smart pools, are in line with that. So at high level, our smart pools have the goal of facilitating thousands of consensual licenses that are unburdened by the inefficiency of litigation or other disputes. And so not only we want to expand the licensing opportunities, but we want to encourage the widespread adoption of beneficial and innovative technologies. So on the next slide, the heading is adoption and innovation are the key. And I'm going to explain why. With the increasing complexity and interoperability of modern innovation, patent pools need to do much more than just bundling patent and sharing a licensing revenue. It's not as simple as that, it's more. So I usually give this example. The modern smartphone consists of nearly 250,000 distinct patents. And the 5G technology, which is only a small part of the smartphone functionality, is expected to add an estimated 30,000 patents to the fray. Now, fully unlocking the value of these interconnected patents requires more than a patent ledger on a worksheet. It calls for something called smart patent management. And this is where the IPwe's smart pools come into play. So our smart pools help facilitate faster adoption in tech areas that are very early in the adoption cycle. In other words, where you don't see a significant amount of licensing activity just yet. So to mention some of the pools we're working on digital twin, which is expected to be a 48.2 billion market by 2026. We have quantum computing, we have electric vehicles, ESG, blockchain, or financial services. Now, today, we take the opportunity to announce our first official launch, and we're very excited about it, which is the Digital Link Smart Pool. And I'm just going to spend a few words on this because there is a lot to say. Digital Link is the latest game-changing technology brought into the digital era, into the world of things. And I was surprised to read that there are more than 5 billion barcodes scanned daily, which is more than Google searches every day. And also read that 82% of retailers and 92% of brand owners support transitioning to a data rich 2D barcode within the next 5 years. And why is that? Because obviously, trading partners, regulators, or consumers, most of all, are interested in getting more product information. So to mention some of its benefits, the one that caught my attention obviously is brand loyalty. So consumers crave additional information about their products. And so the barcodes increase transparency and tradability. So for example, it gives information such as that batch or serial number, which helps prevent fraudulent returns. And so when you link a barcode to multiple related sources, that simplifies product packaging through a single globally recognized code that is compatible for use among consumers, point of sale, or supply chain as a whole. Our Digital Link first founding member is Mobilead, which is a very important leader in the barcode space, soon to be followed by other relevant enterprises and SMEs in the Digital Link space that we can't disclose their names just yet. Now, going back to the adoption and innovation point, how does IPwe encourage adoption and innovation? At high level, what I can tell you is that we provide access to cutting edge technologies on standard terms. And so the smart pools drive further innovation in two ways. So on the one hand, the pool's revenue incentivizes and funds the founding members' R&D. And again, the founding members are the patent contributors. And then on the other hand, having a single license to a wide patent portfolio encourages implementers to adopt new technologies because they're safe in the knowledge that they will have access to IP at a transparent and known cost. So the way I am going to approach this, because a question that we get often is, tell me why your smart pools are that different, like what's new? So the way I'm going to approach this is talking about the problems that we have in the patent space, in the traditional patent pooling environment, and then how IPwe addresses these problems. So we have 4 points. We have high transaction costs, we have high administration costs, we have the fact that not all companies are created equal, and we have the lack of transparency in the IP space. So before jumping into each one of the problems and the solutions, I want to tell you something, that there are two essential requirements for innovation: disclosure and access. And the patent marketplace should be an important venue where exchanges of innovative ideas occur. So what's the issue? Because of high transaction costs and administration costs, to mention just two of them, in patent licensing, access to these technologies is often impeded. And so this is where we come into play, because we want to facilitate access to that technology. We want to encourage adoption of that technology. So first problem, the high transaction costs of patent licensing. Transaction costs are fundamentally different from the licensing fees, because the transaction costs are the cost of realizing the value out of a potential transaction. So the higher the transaction costs are, the less likely the transaction is to be made. And so we came to the conclusion that high transaction costs, due to the inefficiencies that I'm going to address in the marketplace and the patent marketplace, burden sequential innovators in their efforts to access prior innovation. So when we talk about high transaction costs, we can split it in two: search costs and negotiation costs. So I'm gonna talk about search costs with an example. So the voluntary patent licensing depends largely on private negotiations. So a basic question for any transaction is who it is that one wishes to transact with. So the example is, if a family wants to buy a house, they will most likely turn to a respectable real estate agency that has a comprehensive property listing. The aggregation of property listings in one place significantly reduces the search costs for transaction opportunities. Now, in the patent space, it's not that different. If you have to find issued patents and obviously identities of their owners, of the patent owners, what do? You go to the patent databases for information. For example, the USPTO. The USPTO has a searchable registry, right, that contains all issued patents and published applications. What's the problem here? And not specifically to the USPTO, but what's the problem in general for the patent databases? That the information that you obtain from a public registry is often incomplete and fragmented. Because, patents sometimes have ambiguous titles and keywords, and that increases the difficulties of searching for relevant patents. And then the second point here is that new patents are applied or issued constantly. And so the search costs are not a one-time thing. They're not a one-time investment, but rather a continuous investment. And so a public patent database that lags in updating patent information will drive up search costs. So that's the first point, the search costs. Turning to the negotiation costs, and this goes back to the example that I gave of the smartphone. In many research areas, technological developments result in the issuance of several patents, of numerous patents. Each patent constitutes an essential puzzle piece of the larger information base. And so cumulative innovation often requires licensing of a large set of patents. So these sequential innovators have to negotiate multiple patent licenses. And to do that, they likely pay higher licensing fees, which raise the marginal cost of innovation. So that by itself creates a barrier to cumulative innovation because it forces them to pay higher licensing fees. Now, getting to the most important thing here. What do we do? What's our solution? What's IPwe's solution to this? So Jonas will explain it better than myself because it's about our tech tools. But what I can tell you is that IPwe has accumulated analytics and data at an investment of approximately $40 million. So our smart tools provide advanced analytics and data-oriented insights that help organizations identify, research, evaluate, and transact in patents. So with our AI tools, organizations, so it could be large corporations or SMEs, can easily learn where their patents are best utilized. They can get historical licensing data and all the information they need to improve their productivity for increased transaction investment. And just to tell you something, our CEO, Eric Spangenberg, and the IPwe team have earned companies $2.5 billion in revenue, thanks to our AI tool. So the AI component makes pool management easier and removes the inefficiencies that drive costs upwards. So more licensees, and I will tell you more about this, but more licensees can enjoy access to these bundled patents at competitive rates. And so that preserves their ability to profit from implementation efforts. Now, going back, addressing again search cost and negotiation cost. How do we fix the search cost problem? How do we fix the negotiation cost problem? So search costs. We said that search costs comprise a large fraction of transaction costs in patent licensing. And so as opposed to conducting a search on a patent registry, which we said is often ineffective, a sequential innovator can find comprehensive information about patents in a specific tech field through our smart pool. So in our smart pools, we not only publish a comprehensive list of included patents and identity of their owners, but also we provide a detailed reference on how each patent is related to the underlying technology. For example, Mobilead, if you go on our website, you can see all its patents, right? Now, negotiation costs. Our smart pools aggregate several patents, numerous patents in a single entity. So in a traditional patent marketplace, innovators cannot use prior innovations because of high transaction costs. We have the natural solution to the problem because under our pool, an entire group of patents in a specific technology, again, blockchain, digital link, digital twin, ESG, is licensed in a package. And we act as the licensing agent. IPwe is the sole administrator in the pool and it's in the middle. So we make sure we connect licensor with licensees and we make sure that the transactions are smooth. And on top of that, we actually bring licensees to the licensors. So we make sure that their assets don't stay there, we actually monetize the assets. And so innovators that are interested in a certain technology can, in one stop, license all the patents they need, all the patents that are essential to that technology. So all this section was about the high transaction costs. Now we talk about the high administration costs. This is different. The costs associated with the traditional pools administration and maintenance can get as high as 60% of the pool's gross revenue. So that's an unfavorable pricing. IPwe, as you can read here, reserves no surprises to its participants. We again act as the sole smart pool administrator, and we charge no setup fee, administration fee, hidden fee, weird fee, nothing about that. We just have one fee, which is 10 to 15% of the gross revenue of the pool. What does it mean? It means that the fees are lowered dramatically and the savings are passed along to the licensees, to the members. Members which pay a yearly subscription fee based on revenue tier. And here I want to take the opportunity to jump on the third problem, which is not all companies are created equal. So here I want to differentiate the large corporations with the SMEs. So although the patent holders have a considerable influence over the patent pooling process, they're not created equal. What does it mean? It means that compared to the large corporations that can monetize their patents through perhaps mass production and implementation, other institutions like SMEs do not have that luxury. So we have a core mission. We really care about SMEs. So IPwe gives SMEs the unprecedented opportunity to get free membership in its smart pools if they have a revenue below a certain amount. That depends on the smart pool, which means that they have free access to top industry patent portfolio, and also they have peace of mind that high litigation fees will not affect their funding and revenue. And we allow, obviously, their ideas to be protected. Last but not least is the fourth problem that we have in the patent space, is the lack of transparency and inefficiency. IPwe brings transparency to the system. So artificial intelligence and blockchain, and again, Jonas will explain you better this part, are cutting edge tools that introduce greater transparency and ease into the licensing process. And we're in partnership, as you can see here, with IBM and Casper Labs. Now, prior to IPwe, the IP process was not technologically enabled. So it involved an incredible amount of human activity. It was highly inefficient and was completely lacking transparency. So IPwe and our CEO, Eric, realized that technologies like AI and blockchain could bring better information and more transparency to the system. Because what we wanted to see is an increase in productivity, in transactions, and investment in the patent space. And then lastly, we are the first platform talking about patent tokenization. All the licensing transactions on our platform occur through NFTs, non-fungible tokens, which allow patent and licensing information to be centralized in one place and protected. So this slashes discovery costs and helps mitigate the risk that some patent information might slip through the cracks. So I think I addressed all of my points, and I see my time is up. So I leave the space to Jonas that will explain deeper our tech tools. And thanks for your attention, and happy to answer to any of your questions later.
Thank you very much, Lavinia. This was really interesting. I will try to add some flavor on the technical level to take you a bit into the technical weeds. We wanted to leave some room for a Q&A session in the end of this webinar. So I'll try to just walk you through the technical aspects of what has been outlined now in on the level of on the infrastructure level, and I'm going to speak about the following topics. So the heading of this webinar is that the future of patent pooling is here. So how do our pools become smart? There's a technology dimension to it. It was highlighted on multiple occasions now, and I think we have to live up to this and provide you some details. As head of AI development, I'm of course going to address artificial intelligence, its limitations, what we're using it for, and how it's going to change the whole patent ecosystem in the future and on long term. And then the blockchain piece, which is something that has been around quite a bit in our company, but it has been restarted. It got fresh boost by the market being ready, the market maturity around blockchain technology increasing, and kicked off by our announcement with IBM and following by Casper Labs that we are going to create NFTs for patents. Again, I will be giving a short introduction as to what an NFT is, how the NFTs blend with the Smart Pool program, and how the whole ecosystem on our platform is connected with each other or interconnected, and how this changes the way we are looking at pools. So, rough outline: artificial intelligence. I'm going to speak about trend detection and quality control, and regarding blockchain, we'll be speaking about the evidence level and contract management. So there's more to it. I'm going to try not to drop too many buzzwords. I know this looks very buzzwordy on the outset, but there's way more to it than one might think. It's just a question of how this technology is used in practice, so that actually advances your company and advances the IP ecosystem. Okay, so much about that. Let's go. So Lavinia was addressing the fact that we are looking at emerging technologies primarily for our pools. This is, by the way, all of this bashing on transaction costs. I am a former piece of the transaction costs, and so are you as former lawyers, but it's great to have changed the sides. And this is actually a real problem, because it's for closing markets for SMEs specifically, because you need a very good lawyer to have the right level of detail to actually steer your ship through the patent minefield, and AI can help a lot in that. Speaking of lawyers, litigation, and transaction costs in general, is the focus on emerging technology areas. The origins have been addressed here. Is that one issue, and at the same point an opportunity in the current system, is that patent pooling typically starts with mature technologies, mature technology areas. We have slight incentives to change this behavior already. So we see that that patent pooling is being tried to implement at an earlier stage in the innovation cycle, but typically pooling only happens once a specific technology has struggled its way to the top and has become dominant in a specific industry or technology area. And once the pool is established, the pool contributors have a specific return on invest expectation, because they have invested a lot to push their technology to the top. And once we have this mature technology controlling a specific market, device market, for example, the pooling fees they're trying to recover a lot of what they have been spending in the past. So that leads to higher royalty rates that are requested by pools. We have posted an article recently on Lexology about decentralized standardization. I don't want to get into the weed of standard essential patent licensing. We might address that in the Q&A session, but emerging technology areas are specifically interesting because this is more of an open environment. So if you think about the first years of the internet, or basically any emerging technology, you have this very open environment. People are collaborating, people are trying to work together, and at some point the tide turns and it gets more defensive. Suddenly a joint venture is breaking apart. People or companies are suing each other over specific technology because they suddenly and overnight got really valuable. And at some point, the SMEs are excluded from the whole innovation life cycle. And our approach is to go way earlier in the innovation life cycle and start to pinpoint the point in time where technology can be considered emerging, is relevant. You have enough stakeholders to bring together, bring to the table, and to create a, you can say, a freedom to operate environment where the flow of ideas is free and you are under a specific, you're in a specific bubble in a smart pool, and you can exchange thoughts without the threat of being sued. You can focus on feature development once you have established a consensus about the key technologies, which is not saying that we are undermining the patent itself as an exclusivity right. We're just saying that it should be flagged if you have made an important innovation advancing a specific emerging technology area. That can be rewarded, but it does not have to be rewarded on the litigation level with exclusivity, with kicking other companies off the market. There's a more collaborative approach to that. So how can this be done? The solution is apparent having me sitting here. It's artificial intelligence. I'm not speaking about the secret super magic answering machine that will give you anything, but what I'm speaking about is an engine that can reliably detect filing trends very early and at very, or let's say, remote discovery costs compared to what you would spend if you would put a lawyer on it. I mean, the problem is it's a bit of a hen and an egg problem, because if you really put one lawyer on it, the technology will no longer be emerging if the lawyer is done with the assessment, and the market has already changed, the technology market in this respect. You need a bunch of people if you want to do it manually. So the alternative is just to have an engine do it, not at perfection level, but at a decent reliability level, so that you can pinpoint this is currently moving. A lot of companies are moving in this space and are filing increasingly here. Of course, with an 18-month lag if you're looking at patent application, but it's still better than an 8-year lag as we currently see it in other mature technology areas. And that being said, if it's only about patent filings that are assessed by the artificial intelligence engine. The second point is, once a specific emerging technology has been detected, it's natural that we have to speak to companies, we have to approach potential pool contributors and have to say, we have noted that you are filing increasingly in a specific technology area. Still, to this point, we are in an environment or at a technology level where we have not spent massive discovery costs. We have remote discovery costs because we're speaking more about deep technology costs that are encumbered in the creation of the technology itself. Once the investment is done, this can run, and this can run at scale. Of course, tuning it and tweaking it here and there, but the basic technology is there, and there's no repetition in the costs that are aggregating. Now, my favorite point is patent quality. So I've been growing up with patents basically all around me, and I've, not to say that I've only been focusing on patents, but there is a significant change if you're, for example, looking at the first patents that were filed by Nintendo on the Game Boy. Yes, a bit nerdy, I know, but there was just basically one patent family protecting this device, and it quickly spread, and a lot of patents were filed as the technology became more important. But currently what we see is just a massive support of high quantities. So it's not about having a patent, the typical Shark Tank question. It's more about how many patents do you have in this technology area, because somehow your relevance in a specific specific technology area seems to be determined by how many patents you own, not how useful these patents are, or how relevant these patents are, or how valid these patents are. Because if they are put to an actual test, a lot of these patents die like flies, unfortunately, I have to say. So I've read an interesting article that this decade is going to be about patent quality, cutting down the undergrowth of patents that have just been filed for filing's sake, and detecting the patents that actually make sense and offer real value to the ecosystem. And I've put this into raising the bar, generally speaking about the quality bar, and our pools and the system that we are approaching it with is there are specific mechanisms with which you can reward quality. So on the long term, the expectation is that we want to promote quality and we want to reward quality, saying even if somebody has 20, 30 patents in a specific technology area, but they are not relevant or not of high quality, it should be rewarded if one company only has probably 1 or 2 patent families in this space, but of very good quality, of leading quality, should be a higher remuneration for this specific company if this company decides to pledge the patents to a pool, or to a smart pool in our case. Looking at the slide here is small licensors will benefit from a push towards quality, because small licensors, once they decide to actually file, they are often not included in pools. This goes back to the administration and transaction costs around pools, because you can't manage all of these stakeholders. If somebody only has 5 to 10 patent families, you typically do not care in a mature technology area. The big players will just take the whole market and take the whole revenue, which has led to some problems that, for example, is free riding. A lot of SMEs are trying to free ride, either because they don't know about the technology, or the technology being patented. Sorry, of course they know about the technology, or because they don't have access to a pool to actually conclude some really relevant cross licenses. So how can pooling happen in an efficient way and reward patent quality? The answer is artificial intelligence. We have, first of all, a threshold for pool admission. So this is one of the typical licensees problems is, why should I license this pool? I know that this pool might contain some good patents, decent patents of high value, but then there's a lot of stuff that I will never be able to review in a human life manually, that I have to buy together with this package. And where will this take me? So we have summary quality thresholds. Summary speaking is a summary assessment about some quality factors that our AI engine takes into consideration. And in addition to this, we are looking at prior art proximity. So how likely is this patent? Don't want to say we can really do the positive test. We can't say this patent is bulletproof, because then we would have to be omniscient, and we're getting there with the AI, but we're not there yet. So it's more, is there something very close to the specific patent or to the independent claims of this specific patents that might become an issue in the future? And we are looking at this, and when it's too likely that the patent is of low quality, we will not admit it to a pool. So you can rest assured that some quality assessment has been undertaken. It's AI based, but it's thorough, because we're looking at 140 million patents in our index, for example. So when it comes to prior art proximity, we have a lot of stuff to look at. Quality-based royalty revenue allocation, it's an option in the pool, so you don't have to do this, but it's a bit against the linear royalty distribution that we often see, which is favoring high quantities in patents. So I'll just pledge 100 patents to the pool, then I'll get more royalties out of it because I have pledged 100 patents to the pool. This is no longer valid because we are looking at a weighted revenue allocation mechanism that is looking at the summary quality score and your performance. So patents that are of higher quality and higher relevance are rewarded more or can be rewarded more. It's an option that the founding member of the pool can agree upon. One point is maybe a slight remark is regarding validity. We of course look at the validity scoring cap. So I know that you can have bulletproof patents on the validity side, but nobody's ever going to use them because you have added 25 sub-features into the claim. So we are looking at the right balance between the amount of features and the prior art proximity. It's a flow and it's a process. Okay, have to be careful of time, so I'll get into the next big question. Blockchain technology, why? The blockchain dimension to it, it's not based on the fact that blockchain is in the news. It's based on the fact that we think blockchain is the technology of the future, and blockchain adds a layer to the whole process or the whole infrastructure that is of essential importance, because otherwise this would not work. So first of all, we use blockchain integration for blockchain technology for integration reasons. We have designed a non-fungible token. Quick explanation is fungible tokens are tokens that are not unique, that are not they are not representing one specific asset. Like the Bitcoin, for example, is just money. You care more about the value than you care about the coin that you have. And the NFT is representing a unique real-world asset, in our case, a patent. And the beauty of this is that it's a vehicle for data collection and data aggregation and the integration into the whole life cycle. So you will read from the next points, or I'll follow my explanation about the next points is the NFT is the basis of that's connecting all of our modules in the platform together, and every value relevant aspect is being written into your token, to the token representing your patent. Which gets me to reason 2 is data aggregation. The NFT, we have a very siloed system. If you want to know about a patent litigation, you have to look that one up. If you want to know about prosecution relevant events, you have to look into the file wrapper. So you have to look at the number of data sources to find out about a patent's contextual information. And we are, in our case, this is data aggregation is the relevant point. So to make the connection to the smart pool is, if your asset is in a pool, the fact that your asset is being pooled is recorded in the NFT, adding to the value of that NFT, because the more you transact and the more transparent you transact with your asset, the higher its value becomes, because you have a minimum transactional value assigned to that specific asset. So integrating smart pools into this NFT ecosystem is essential from our point of view, because the NFT becomes the single source of truth for valuation. Now, third reason is smart contracts. When we were speaking about low transaction costs, a lot of this is based on the smart contracts. You have self-executing contracts that utilize the blockchain, so to trigger specific contractual events if a real-world event is detected. For example, licensee pays, the license is active, licensee does not pay, license can become inactive, the license can be terminated. There are specific events that you can pre-record, and because of that, you can handle microtransactions as well as you can handle really big scale transactions. This is the point why blockchain is making this way more efficient and cutting the transaction costs. And now the ultimate reason to use the blockchain technology is, if we're getting into this nitty-gritty environment, you have to have an audit trail, because otherwise you're losing trust. If anyone That's it, because we have not a linear royalty revenue distribution. We have specific quality factors taking into account. You need a decent audit trail and an immutable audit trail to actually gain the trust of the stakeholders, the members and the founders, because you always have to be able to explain why something happened, when, and for what reason. So this is the transparency aspect of our blockchain technology. Very quick how. I see we only have 8 minutes left. Going to take you through the way. So you can pledge a patent in the IPwe platform as available for smart pooling. This will be recorded into the NFT metadata only, because if we wrote it onto the blockchain, it would be immutable. So you would not get off of that pledge. If it's in the metadata, you can get rid of that pledge. Different story for friend commitments, of course, but we're not speaking about the friend commitment. We're just addressing the general smart pool concept here. Once we have a number of patents together to start a smart pool, the NFT owners with pool eligible patents kick off the smart pool and sign the founding member agreement, the master services agreement, and the cross licenses are recorded on chain as well. Based on the selected licensing model, we predefine the smart contracts that are relevant for that specific pool, and the schedule is prepared to scale right from the start. So we code it down once, and if you want to go outside of specific pre-tailored set of rules, and it scales. And last point is allocation and auditing. Is the blockchain dimension is, as I addressed before, automated yields, automated allocation, and according to your agreement. And that way the pool becomes smart because it's running itself to a very high degree. That was quick. Questions, I assume there are many. I see there are some in the questions bar. Feel free to shoot over some. I need to drink a bit of water. So Lavinia, you might want to go first with the first question. Thank you.
Sure. Let me see here. So one of the questions is, where in the organization would we be saving, if marketing, legal, or finance? Okay, so from a marketing perspective, our platform serves as a new channel to advertise patents to some extent. So as I was mentioning before, we act as the smart pool administrator. So we, if you are a company with a patent portfolio, and it doesn't matter how many patents you have, and you want to contribute it in the, say, blockchain pool, we will monetize your assets, your patents, and we will look out for licensees, for members. So we'll advertise your patents, right? From a legal standpoint, and that goes back to what Jonas said, our smart contract system reduces the hours you spend reviewing contracts. And also I would say the time and resources spent on third-party law firms for search and analytics. And then the third point was finance. From a financial point of view, you significantly save money, as we are a competitive platform compared to the ones that you find on the market. I'm gonna take the opportunity to answer to another question that it's related to revenue as well, which is, how do you determine the revenue of a company contributing patents to the pool? So we have a simple formula that determines the revenue, which is the total number of patents in the pool overall over how many patents the founder contributed specifically. Jonas, you wanna?
Yes,
look at?
Thank you. I have two cool questions that I want to quickly address. One is, would be interesting to understand the enterprise class design of this offering. I think this is an important point that we kind of skipped now. There is a difference to the CryptoKitties and the OpenSeas tokens of this world, because we have been developing this token specifically for the enterprise class together with IBM and Casper. The reason why we need to be very careful with this is enterprise is slow in the willingness to adopt, so you have to nail it in terms of their requirements. You can't put a token out that is vulnerable in terms of securities law, for example. So it's a very thin line, and if you really want to serve the B2B, the enterprise class, you have to work with who is best in class regarding enterprise. And this is why we have teamed up with IBM and Casper, because we think that the solution that we have developed with them on the NFT side is perfectly suited to make sure that the enterprise requirements are met always. I see we're getting a lot of questions. Do you want to take the next one, Lavinia, or I'll quickly read through them? And
yeah. How do we identify a founding member? So, and also one about the hold up problem. The hold up problem, we solve it by, all the patents are in one place, and so all the licensing transactions are in one place, and so licensees do not have to look for individual patent holders, because that increases their cost, and so they can save money on their R&D. How do we identify a founding member? So I see that we have 1 minute left, so we can email you afterwards, because I see we have a lot of questions. So identifying the founding member starts with identifying a key technology area, so depending on which pool we're talking about. So the second step would be identifying the key terms that are associated with that, and we put those terms into the AI engine that Jonas was mentioning. So the AI engine will produce a list of who the top holders of those particular patents are numerically. So for example, if you look at blockchain and we type on Google blockchain holders, we probably get IBM and Chain or Tencent in top 10. But then after that, the variability after that is significant. So we would have to put that same list of patents back into the machine, the AI machine, and start looking at other factors. He mentioned it: validity, quality, whether the patents are good or not, how fundamental they are, how incremental they are. And so after that, we come up a list of who we think are the most important holders in the space, and reach out to them. And the key piece of this, and what it makes it easier than years ago, is the predictive analytics and the AI component.
Thank you. I have answered like 4 questions in writing now. I hope I could help. We are out of time. I'll take the questions away and try to follow them up by email. Whatever is left unanswered for this time being. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the session, and it was a pleasure to give the presentation to you and to introduce you into the smart pools, how we see them, how we've built them, and how they are going to change the way the IP world runs. Thank you very much, Lavinia.
Thank you, everyone.